In 1942, a man was stripped of his clothes, his name, and his identity. A number was tattooed onto his arm. His wife, his parents, his entire family taken from him and murdered. He had every reason to stop fighting. Instead, he made a discovery inside that death camp that would go on to save millions of lives outside of it, including, possibly, yours. This is not a book summary. This is the most important lesson in human suffering ever recorded. And by the end of this video, you will not be able to look at your own pain the same way again. His name was Viktor Frankl. Before the war, he was a psychiatrist in Vienna, already fascinated by one question that would define his entire life. Why do some people survive the worst suffering imaginable, while others, facing the exact same suffering, give up completely? He didn't know it yet, but he was about to become his own experiment. In 1942, Frankl and his family were arrested and sent to Nazi concentration camps. Over the next 3 years, he would pass through 4 of them, including Auschwitz, the deadliest place in human history. By the time the war ended, his wife was dead, his father was dead, his mother was dead, his brother was dead. Of his entire family, only Frankl and one sister survived. He had lost everything a human being can lose. And yet, somehow, he walked out of that camp not broken, but with a message so powerful that his book, written in 9 days after his liberation, has now sold over 16 million copies and is considered one of the most influential books in modern history. What did he discover in that camp? Stay with me. We're about to go there. Inside the camp, Frankl noticed something that terrified him more than the guards, more than the hunger, more than the cold. Men who looked physically strong, men who should have survived, were dying within days. Not from disease, not from starvation. They simply stopped. There was even a term for it among the prisoners. They called it giving up. A man would wake up one morning, refuse to get out of bed, light a cigarette he'd been saving, a cigarette that in the camp was more valuable than food, and smoke it. Everyone knew what that meant. Within 48 hours, he would be dead. Not from anything the guards did that day, from something that broke inside of him. Frankl started asking, what is the difference between the men who broke and the ones who didn't? He found the answer in something so simple it's almost impossible to believe it changed history. The men who survived all had one thing in common: a reason, something or someone waiting for them outside, a wife they needed to see again, a book they hadn't finished writing, a child who needed a father. The men who gave up the cigarette, who kept walking, who kept breathing through the cold, they weren't stronger. They just had a why. And the men who lost their why lost everything, even while their bodies were still alive. Here's what should terrify you. This isn't just a story about a concentration camp. This is happening right now, in your life, whether you realize it or not. Think about the last time you were going through something hard. A breakup, a failure, a loss. Did you have a reason to keep going? Or did you just survive the day with no idea why you were even trying? That's the first thing Frankl discovered, but it's not even the deepest part. Because next, he discovered something about freedom that most people never understand in their entire lives. By this point, Frankl had lost every form of control a human being can have. He didn't control when he woke up. He didn't control what he ate, if he ate at all. He didn't control who lived and who died around him. A guard could decide on a whim whether Frankl saw the next sunrise. Everything had been taken from him, except one thing. Frankl realized that even in that place, surrounded by cruelty designed to strip every ounce of dignity a human being has, there was one freedom the guards could never touch: the freedom to choose his own attitude, how he responded internally to what was happening to him. They could control his body, they could not control his mind. He watched prisoners walk through the camp, through the same hunger, the same cold, the same horror, and some of them still gave away their last piece of bread to someone weaker, still offered comfort to another man, still found a way to be human in a place built to make them forget they were human at all. That choice, that internal choice, is what Frankl called the last human freedom. And here's the part that should hit you the hardest. If a man could find that freedom inside Auschwitz, what's stopping you from finding it after a bad breakup, after you lose a job, after somebody says something cruel to you, after life doesn't go the way you planned? Nothing. Nothing is stopping you except the belief that your circumstances are what control you. They're not. They never were. You've just been giving that power away for free. But knowing this, understanding it in your head, isn't the same as living it. Which brings us to the hardest part of what Frankl discovered, the part most people, even after reading his book, never actually apply. Frankl spent his life studying this question and eventually built an entire branch of psychology around it, something he called Logotherapy. At the center of it was one belief: humans are not primarily driven by pleasure, like Freud believed, and we're not primarily driven by power, like Adler believed. We are primarily driven by meaning. And he found that meaning comes from exactly 3 places. The first is through what we create, our work, our purpose, something we build or contribute to the world. The second is through who we love, the people we hold, the connection we experience with another human being. But the third source is the one almost nobody understands, and it's the one Frankl himself proved with his own life. Meaning can be found in how we face unavoidable suffering. Not suffering we chose, not suffering we can fix, the suffering that simply happens to us. Illness, loss, death, betrayal, the suffering with no solution. Frankl watched men in the camp, stripped of work and stripped of the people they loved, still find a third path. They found meaning in the way they carried their pain, in their dignity, in refusing to let the suffering turn them into something cruel. Read that again. Suffering ceases to be suffering the moment it finds a meaning. This is not toxic positivity. Frankl never said suffering is good or that you should look for reasons to suffer. He said the opposite: avoid suffering you can prevent. But for the suffering you cannot avoid, the pain that already happened, that you can't undo, you still have one choice left: what you make it mean. 2 people can go through the exact same tragedy. One is destroyed by it for the rest of their life. The other becomes stronger, wiser, more compassionate because of it. Same event, completely different outcome. The difference isn't the event, it's the meaning they built around it. Here's where Frankl's idea becomes genuinely dangerous to the way most people think. Most of us go through life asking, what do I want from life? What am I going to get out of this? We wait for life to hand us meaning, purpose, happiness, like it's owed to us. Frankl flipped the question entirely. He said the real question isn't what you want from life, it's what life is asking of you, right now, in this exact moment, in this exact situation. And your only job is to answer that question with your actions, not your words. Life was asking Frankl inside that camp a question every single day. Will you still hold on to your humanity? Will you still choose your response? Will you survive with meaning or just survive? And life is asking you a question too, right now, today, in whatever you're going through. Your job isn't to demand an answer from the universe about why this is happening to you. Your job is to answer life's question back through what you do next. That's the flip. That's the thing almost nobody in the self-help world tells you because it's not comfortable. It doesn't say, manifest your dreams or the universe has a plan for you. It says, stop waiting for permission. Life already asked its question. Answer it. There's one more idea from Frankl that almost nobody talks about, and it might be the most useful thing in this entire video. He described human psychology like a tightrope. If there's no tension on the rope, if life is too easy, too comfortable, nothing pulling at you, you don't walk forward, you just wobble in place. Comfort on its own doesn't create growth, it creates stagnation. But too much tension, too much pressure, and the rope snaps, you break. Frankl argued that mental health, real, functioning, growing mental health, isn't the absence of tension, it's finding the right amount of tension between where you are now and a meaning worth striving for. This is why comfort alone never fixes anyone. This is why people who have everything still feel empty. They removed all the tension from the rope, and now they're not walking anywhere. They're just standing still, safe, and hollow. You don't need less pressure in your life. You need the right pressure, pointed towards something that actually matters to you. So here's how you actually use everything Frankl discovered, not as information you nod along to and forget in 10 minutes, as something you do today. First, find your why, not someday, today. Write down in one sentence the reason you're pushing through whatever is hard right now. If you can't answer that, that's the first problem to solve before anything else. Second, the next time life throws something at you that you can't control, pause before you react. Ask yourself one question: what is my chosen response here? Not your automatic one, your chosen one. That half-second pause is where your entire freedom lives. Third, stop asking what you're owed. Start asking what this moment, this exact situation is asking of you. Then go answer it with action, not with more thinking. And fourth, if you're carrying pain you cannot fix, cannot undo, cannot change, stop fighting the fact that it happened. Start deciding what it will mean. That decision is the only power you have left over it, and it's enough. Remember the question we opened with. If a man can lose his wife, his parents, his brother, his freedom, his own name, and still walk out of that place with something worth giving to the world, what's your excuse? You don't have one, not a real one. Viktor Frankl didn't survive Auschwitz because he was the strongest man there. He survived because he never let go of one thing, the meaning he built even in the middle of hell. Whatever you're facing right now is not Auschwitz, but the lesson is the same size, no matter how big or small your suffering is. Find your reason, choose your response, answer what life is asking of you. That's it. That's the whole secret. It was never complicated. It was just hard. If this meant something to you, tell me your why in the comments below. I read every single one. Stay with us.